Welcome in, everybody. Tuesday night here. Joe Quills here with you. And as it's Tuesday night, that means I'm flying solo. Yeah, actually, I don't really like this look. Hold on. There we go. That's better. So, we're here. It's Tuesday night. I looked at it at first. I was like, it doesn't look that bad. And then, yeah, I changed my mind last minute there. So, those that are listening after the fact, I changed the lighting and on here tonight. So, welcome in. Tuesday night, one night closer to the weekend, and in my case, one night closer to being on vacation. It'll be a working vacation for me. Anytime I'm not doing my real job, it's a beautiful thing. But so yeah, so next week there'll be no shows. Well, there may be a show on Monday in the afternoon, but other than that, nothing the rest of the week that will be me related, Joe Quill show related. So just let you know ahead of time. So, but got a lot to talk about here, and as you can see on there, a little upset this, a little bummed this morning. You know, not bummed as in getting a lap dance from a bum or anything like that, but I was a little bummed because I found out a Northeast Philly icon, which I've seen for years and years, is no more. We'll talk about that. Um, you know, some of the other things that are there. Um, we NFL draft is coming up. Teams are listening to trades. ESPN icon Mike Patrick passed away. Um, we have another athlete who's running for Congress. I'll tell you who that is. And Anthony Edwards got fined if, as a result of Game One. What he did will make you laugh, but I mean, he's probably not wrong. But he's probably not wrong, but you just can't say that to the crowd. So he did say something to the LA crowd during the game. I think it was during the game, but whether it was during the game or after the game, you just can't say that. So yeah, I can just hear the Duke crowd. You can't say that. You can't say that. Oh, you can tell it's going to be one of those nights already, and we're getting closer to the full moon too. So be aware of that as well if you're believing in those sort of things. Like, I mean, I believe in the new moon and the full moon. The new moon, everybody turns nasty. The full moon, everybody. Oh no, we're going to the new moon. That's right. The full moon was last week. Usually the full moon is when people go crazy, and the new moon is where they go batshit angry. But uh, but this month, for some reason, they were batshit angry for whatever reason when the full moon was about. So I don't know. I don't know if Mercury's in retrograde or anything like that. Do I believe in that? No, but it's a nice common point. It's like, yeah, okay, so I understand different things like that. So, but it was a beautiful day here in Philadelphia, and of course, the caffeine did nothing for me, as I'm yawning away here, and I do apologize for that. Beautiful day here in Philly, and hopefully, we will get to enjoy some good weather here before I uh, make my trek down to the Bleacher Brothers World Headquarters in Florida next week. Of course, weather's going to be good here, so figures. But the weather's always good in Florida, except for when it rains for that half an hour or whatever. But so the one thing is with me, and I admit, sometimes when I get up in the morning, um, when I get up in the morning, I have this little routine. I get up, I go looking for my phone, I find my phone, and and I start looking at Insta stories, reels, whatever, and just go from there. So I saw this morning, and yeah, it was early this morning because it was before I even wrote my article today because I was running behind schedule. I just got in the mood where I just totally did not feel like writing last night. So I was gambling with what they were going to post for a race on Equibase because I have a couple different sources I can get free races from. So so I ended up looking around. I ended up I was looking in the morning, and I'm just sitting there, and actually I was already at the computer. I think my ADD kicked in where I started looking at other things. While I was looking at Facebook, and I saw that a Northeast Philadelphia landmark is no more. And it is Northeast Philadelphia. It's not like this far up in Northeast Philadelphia, but but you do, you do, if you were to pass by it years ago, you would know what I was talking about. And I'm going to give you an idea of what that is here as I share this picture of a picture that I took. And I think this picture was actually, um, I'm trying to think when I took this picture because um, probably had to be late aughts. It might have been when I had a Droid phone at the time. I'm not sure. But either way, um, those that went through lower Northeast Philly knows exactly where this was. And there it is. It's the Eagles bus. It was atop of an auto collision place. And the original inhabitant in the lower level was a restaurant called the Bus Stop, applicably named. So, um, and I saw before I moved in 2017, I saw that they had painted it over, and I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. But um, but I found out today that the bus is no more. The bus was removed. So that Go Get 'Em Eagles bus. Now I think it was actually the Go Get 'Em Eagles was on the other side of the bus, which this bus was originally painted over. It was originally white with green, and I'll tell you more about it in a second. But you know, on the other side of the bus, which was painted over and probably doesn't have it on there, it did say on there originally "Go Get 'Em Eagles," but when they loaded the bus onto the roof there, and that's right at Tarsdale and Harbison. If you're curious where that was, they loaded that bus onto the building, and it was a Northeast Philly icon. I mean, it was probably just as big as, um, in terms of the neighborhood standpoint. I mean, it was the same as like the statue of 5 Points or the Tomb of the Unknown Pollock at the Bridesburg. All right, I'm kidding about that, but you get the idea. No, but seriously, most people in Northeast Philly knew exactly where this was at Harbison and Tarsdale. Well, it's actually Harbison and Brill. Actually Tarsdale and Brill, but I call it Harbison and Tarsdale, so it's just those two main streets there, and Brill Street's right next to it. So, you know, so so this this bus was atop a roof of a Wissanoming auto body shop fit. Um, it fit in with the fabric in Northeast Philadelphia and the Northeast Philadelphia neighborhood, specifically Wissanoming. Um, Chaz Jaroof, whose father Charlie, um, they lifted the shell of a green school bus onto the roof of the Panorama at Tarsdale and Brill a year after the bus broke down in January 1981 while carrying a gang of rowdy Eagles fans to the Super Bowl in New Orleans that first time we were there. And I shouldn't say we, but you get the idea. Um, so this was a roadside attraction, as I mentioned here. It's a Philly landmark, or was a Philly landmark. I mean, you could go there and boom, it was there for you. And it's just the shell of it, obviously, because the weight of it would go through the roof and down below. So the bus atop the auto body shop was a roadside attraction, reminder of a group of guys in the neighborhood who tried to drive to the Super Bowl. Now, the Eagles went nearly 25 years without reaching the big game, and a bus on the roof, which they call in this article the Liberty Bell of Northeast Philly, as Charlie Giroux once said, was a reminder for decades that the Birds actually played in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to bring me back in here. There we go. So actually, let me do that. There we go. So that bus, you know, and even my friends would be like, "Oh, the Eagles bus and all that." So Chaz said that was our whole world. The Eagles didn't win that Super Bowl. Um, hey, Dad, the Eagles lost that game. I don't know. It was just a big deal. So yeah. Um, so that was there. Um, so the Giroux sold that building in early 2000. My phone's going off for whatever reason. Um, so early 2000s, the bus was painted blue. It said it was painted blue a few years ago. It was more than that. It was more than a few years ago, probably at least 10. And I'm going to share my screen here. And this is what they did. Whoops, hold on. Harbison Tarsdale. And this is from 2019. So I was out of the neighborhood 2 years. Pantry One was still there at the time. It's now a Sunoco. So this gives you an idea of 2019, where they painted this over. Let me go here. So they painted it over, and they painted it blue. So Executive Auto Salon that bought this building, they turn. I mean, this is like throwing. This was throwing. I don't know. any color paint on the Liberty Bell. I mean, this was our little our little thing here, and let's see here. Okay, so 2012 it was still Go Get 'Em Eagles. Uh, 2014 it was still the Eagles. Okay, yeah, so somewhere between 2014 and 2016, 2015, somewhere in that year period. So about 10 years it's been blue. So let me go to the latest one here so you can see that without too much. And they changed hands again. The building changed hands again, or they changed names, one or the other. And it's still blue, but you can see like some of the paint's wearing off there. They no longer make food. They no longer build food trucks or anything like that. But or at least they don't promote it. So you see what they did. So um, so it was about 2014, 2015 that they painted that blue, and I remember that. Um, Chaz Jaruf said, "There's no reason to look up anymore." Yeah, it sucked. Um, Last month, it became even worse when the bus was removed so the current owners could replace the roof before the building was sold. Yeah. Now, granted, it's just the shell of the bus. So you didn't have all the seats in there. You didn't have all the things that they did to the bus when they redid that. So, um, so, so the previous owners, I don't know if it's this auto addiction company or not. I don't know if it's them anymore. If it was them that did it, but um, Giroux figures that the bus was sawed into pieces since it was just a shell without an engine or anything else inside. The current owners could not be reached for comment. So somewhere along the lines, this got all hacked down and probably sent to a metal recycling place or a scrap yard or whatever it is. So somewhere along the lines, this got removed, which really sucks if you ask me. I mean, it also sucks that they turned it blue, but I figured it had to be something with the roof. But also, it's also new business. They'll do what they want with it. So, so that bus was on that roof for over 30 years. And I'm guessing just the weight of the shell of that was probably a reason why they had to remove, well, 40 years. So they had to remove it. So, um, yeah, Chaz Jaruf said no one saw it come down. No one saw it halfway done. Um, Now they got it up there with a crane. No one put a crane on the ground and blocked off the streets. No one saw it come down. So maybe it happened at nighttime. But then again, if you're hacking that down, don't you think the neighbors would be hearing that and complaining unless they're playing really loud music in the neighborhood, which wouldn't surprise me. Not stereotyping, but you get the idea. Um, so the building was sold last week, the building was sold last week by P Vine Properties LP, Peavine. Um, a business tied to a Conshohocken address. to 5223 Tarsdale LLC, which is linked to a residential address in Mayfair. Now, passed away in 2022. He graduated from Father Judge's first graduating class in 57, served the Air Force before opening Panorama, which was the collision and paint place there on the top on the main floor. Uh, the bar in the basement was called the Bus Stop as a nod to the bus owner, but I think it was more of a private bar than was because I don't really remember it as a but whatever. But um, so two auto body shops occupied the building once Panorama closed. The bus hung around until now. So, um, but here's some old um, here's some old pictures that the article had on there. So let me see here. Let me see if I can zoom this in. So there's the original. There goes the original picture. This is from 81 or 82, probably, when they were putting that on there. I'm sure probably somebody I know was probably that I knew was in that crowd that day, but they were hoisting that onto the roof with a crane, and that's the bus that replaced it when they were going down to when they go to games every Sunday. So that was a picture there. Uh, so this is the bus that replaced it. Yeah, there you go. Go get 'em Eagles. That's why Go get 'em Eagles was on that sign that I showed you. This photo here. That's why it says Go get 'em Eagles on there uh, because this bus that replaced it had Go get 'em Eagles on there. It was probably on the original bus too. So there's the original bus. The original bus was white, and they painted it green when once the bus was, and that's how the inside looked. Um, oh no, that's the newest Eagles bus. Okay, so you see, there's like a couple of couches and all that. So they got a bus, but they turned it into like a party bus. So those are the buses there, and then we'll go back to me here. So um, so they're asking, where did it get moved to? Um, from what they're saying in this article, that bus, the original Eagles bus, which was a bus that originally was a bus that went to was a bunch of men would go down to the Eagles game. And I'll mention the fact that they went to the Super Bowl and the bus broke down and ended up on the roof. Well, they hacked it. They cut it apart because it was just a shell, and no one knows what happened to it. But it's no more. They cut it all down. They took it down. Um, it's not around anymore. They took it down within the last month, according to this article here. Um, and you know, and the motto that was on that on the bus that replaced the original bus, which was on the roof, but it was even on that bus, that original bus, was either way we can't lose, because back in the '70s, the Eagles were terrible most of that decade, but the bus still rumbled every week to South Philly. Um, um, The guys sang all the way down and all the way home. They always had a good time. Um, you can't. What's America about if you can't have a little fun? We've had good times and good laughs there. They were irreplaceable. Um, um, Probably not, um, from what I'm gathering, because from what I saw here, the the owners, which is probably two owners after the guy who actually put that bus on there, because the owner that took over that building in 2015 painted it over as blue. Um, so this is what they did to the bus in 2015. Whoops. And I saw it the one day and I was just like, man, that sucks. But this is what they did. 2015. Well, this is from 2022, and I showed like the progression of uh, the Google the Google street views here. 2014, it was still the Eagles bus, and they had just taken over that plot of land here. Then in 2015, they changed names. They new business here, Executive Auto Salon, and they were focusing on building food trucks as well as other car and truck businesses, auto detailing, and they painted it over blue. So unfortunately, it was like this, but it was. I think I'm sharing it right. Oh no, I'm not sharing it. Hold on. There we go. Let me show it here. So there is the that was 2022. That's the last time a Google car has been in the area. Um, Now, 2014, it was still the Eagles bus, even though this business changed hands once or twice. This building changed hands. 2015, it became Executive Auto Salon and it got painted blue. 2018, still executive, but I guess they were starting to get out of building food trucks. November 2018, you can see it fading a little more, that sign. 2019, and by 2022, it was a totally different business. They didn't know what to do with it. So when they were in the process of selling the building, the new owner must be a Cow Chips fan. I agree. I agree. But then again, Executive did have blue as their coloring, so we can call them Cow Chip fans. But what happened was they, in order to sell the building, they had to replace the roof. And I didn't realize that it was just a shell. So when they loaded it on there in 1982, they had to take all the stuff out of it once they actually um, gutted the inside of it after they towed it back to Philadelphia when it broke down in South Carolina. So somewhere along the way, they cut that down. They cut the insides out. They took the motor out and everything. It was just enough so it can stand there and make it look like it's actual bus. And obviously, if you're going to have a heavy ass bus on the roof, it's eventually going to collapse. I think that over time, even if it's even the building that I'm sitting in right now, even though I'm not on the top floor, eventually you're going to get leaks in the roof over time just because of erosion, wear and tear, all that stuff. But I imagine that the weight of that, even the shell, which is probably still a few tons, was weighing down on that roof and ceiling, and they had to get it fixed. And the only way they were going to buy that building was if they actually replaced that roof, and they did. So that's the reason why that they took it down. But an icon is no more. a landmark like that. Um, but the story behind this bus is the Eagles reached the Super Bowl in January 1981, Super Bowl 15. Garoof decided to point the bus toward New Orleans with 13 guys inside. They called themselves the Dirty Dozen Plus One, and the bus was overhauled to include a bar, tables, TV, even a bathroom. TVs, plural. But it died in South Carolina, about 730 miles away from the Super Bowl. A tow truck brought it back to Northeast Philly, while the Dirty Dozen Plus One figured out a way to get to New Orleans. Some even rented hearses. The dead bus was lifted onto the roof as you see there, and Garoof bought a new bus for the Sunday games. So, um, so there is a third iteration of the Northeast Philly Eagles bus that goes to the games every Sunday from Mayfair. Um, they started this tradition and they continue on with that every Sunday. But the bus on the roof was the thing. Sometimes that caught your eye when you're driving down Tarsdale Avenue, which is something that I saw every time I would go. Whoops, 1 second. There we go. So that's what I saw all the time. Then 2015 they painted it over. Um, I mean, it says here it caught your eye when you're driving down Tarsdale Avenue. Also, when you're driving down Harbison Avenue too, with the angle of the road. Now they said that a building next to it. Um, they said there was a motorcycle on another building, but I don't remember that. Um, but that was down long before this came down, within the last month. But but first of all, it pissed me off that they painted it over, and they painted it over in blue. I mean, if you're going to paint it over as yellow maybe, because that was probably the initial bus, and that bus originally was a bus that they bought from a church, I believe. Let me find it here. Um, yeah, they bought that bus is from 1954. They bought it for $225 in 1970 from a church in Huntington Valley. The bus was painted for the Eagles, first white with green trim, which I showed the picture of, and used every game to transport a group of dads from St. Timothy's Parish to the vet. But I'm trying to figure out where that motorcycle comes into play. Because he mentioned because there was another building half a block down, I think it is. Um, oh, another. I know what it is. Here it is. Another business had a moving truck on top. That's what it is. So I don't remember that. Um, or maybe I do. Let me see something here. Even though it's not, no, it wasn't. Just looking to see here. I don't know where that moving. They're mentioning a moving van here, but I don't know where that moving van was. Yeah, I don't remember the moving van. Um, the moving van. Oh, it's not. The moving van wasn't down the street. Um, Let me go back to me here. There we go. There was one. I think there was one at the Frankfurt Arsenal, but I think that was put on there later. And there was a there was also a moving company on Orthodox Street, and that was hung the over the corner of the building. But yeah, so I mean, apparently this is something that was done a lot in Northeast Philly, but but it does piss me off that they did take that down. Yeah, there's nothing I can do. I'm not in that neighborhood anymore. I'm in a different area in Northeast Philly, but um, yeah, that really is a um, that is a kick in the nuts to me. But but things come to an end, and you know, I mean, it almost feels like that they threw paint on the Liberty Bell, if you ask me, or whatever landmark you want to choose. But you know, but at least there's reasoning behind it, and I think from what they're saying, it sounds like that they just dismantled the bus and probably got took all the metal and iron and everything else, and they just said, let's just, you know, but you would figure because behind that Sunoco store, which used to be the Pantry One, that used to be. I mean, there's a lot of houses there because on the other side of that building is Scattergood Street. That has a whole bunch of houses. Tarsdale has a whole bunch of houses there between Brill and Bridge Street. So you you have to hear all the noise of them hacking it down. So I mean, I don't know if the writer just didn't go about from house to house saying, "Hey, do you know anything about this thing?" Or he didn't go to the Dunkin' Donuts there or anything. But then again, the Dunkin' Donuts probably they'd be like, "Oh no, I don't know." But yeah, pretty devastating for me personally because that was where I grew up. I remember that Eagles bus, but now it's no more. So unfortunately, unfortunately, it is what it is, and you know, so but they do have the Eagles bus three, which goes to Eagles games, and the Eagles will be drafting 32nd tomorrow night, depending on any trades, because they are the reigning, defending Super Bowl champions. Now, teams that are at the top of the list here. First is Tennessee, and they said that they are going to be taking Cam Ward with the first pick. And of course, because the way it is now, especially on X, if you have a funny comment to somebody's news story within a couple of minutes or seconds, um, you could actually get yourself posted on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Now, I am a little upset, even though not upset really as upset as I am seeing that bus being taken down. Little perturbed with a person that I quoted on X yesterday because this person posted their pick five. And those that read my articles, Quills Picks Winners on Bleacher Brothers, I wrote about all five races in that Philly Big Five wager, which is a pick five wager, but they give it a special name because it's what's called a jackpot wager, which means that in order to win the entire pot, you have to be the only winning ticket. And about a month or two ago, I was joking around with Jessica Paquette, who's the track announcer at Parks. I said, "So much for that mandatory payout." I mean, they still have to do it because they promoted it. They still had to, but the day or two before that was going to be completely distributed, somebody popped it for $400,000. But yeah, so they had that yesterday, and um, this little disappointed because I said if you take their pick four and play it, or you can play mine and play it, or if you morph both of ours together into one big pick five ticket, maybe you'll hit something. Well, guess what? You take that person's race 6, 7, 9, and 10, and you take my pick in race 8, you would have popped the pick five for about $6,000. Now, the thing is, a lot of people had it because it was a lot of favorites, but they had that 25 to 1 shot apparently, but that won the first race. Uh, but um, but going back here, somebody made a comment about Cam Ward being the first. Somebody made an actual news story on X. Oh, first pick in the draft is going to be Cam Ward, and somebody said, yet they're going to take the whole 15 minutes. Well, the 15 minutes is more because of NFL Network and ESPN and not Tennessee. If they had their way, 8 o'clock. I need a piece of paper here. All right, pretend this is my slip here that gets turned in. 8:01. There's my pick. So, but ESPN's coming on the air, NFL Network's coming up on the air. They're showing the fans in Green Bay. They're showing people cutting the cheese. I'm sorry, eating cheese, and the cheese heads and the hats and all that. And I'm sure there's going to be somebody with a Philly cheesesteak hat. And I wonder if that guy who got fired from his job because he told a Pennsylvania Green Bay fan who was at the link that day, that wild card matchup, he was saying something about seeing her next Tuesday. He got fired because he was the type of business he was at was the worst. It was the total opposite of how he acted. But they're gonna, they'll pan the crowd. They'll do all this shit that they do, but they'll still take the full 10, 15 minutes because hey, the NFL's got to, and Roger Goodell's got to get booed right away. Welcome to the 2025 NFL Draft. Boo! Stuff like that. But apparently, according to Peter Schrager, had a Schrager bomb today. He said the Browns and the Giants are fielding trade inquiries for their early picks in the NFL Draft. Tennessee had said they were not entertaining offers for the first overall pick because they're going with Cam Ward of Miami. Sources are telling Schrager that the Browns, who had the second pick, and the Giants, who had the third pick, have received trade offers over the past 48 hours, and that neither team is outwardly rejecting those overtures. Now, the one thing is, and we'll mention some of the names that they're going to be looking in a moment. The thing is, let's say you are San Diego, the LA Chargers. I don't know. I'm just picking a team because it's within their own division. The Raiders are the sixth pick. If you know that teams that are 2, 3, 4, and 5 are not going to be going for Astringenti, who I'm going to mention in a second, let's hop over the Raiders so we get our guy and they have to scramble. So according to the sources that told Peter Schrager over the last couple of days, he was on Pat McAfee's show this afternoon. The expectation is that those teams looking to trade up to the number 2 or number 3 pick are pursuing two-way star draft Travis Hunter, Penn State pass rusher Abdul Carter, hello Eagles, uh, or Boise State running back Ashton Genty. And the thing is, if you're looking for Ashton Genty, you're going to need to get above the Raiders because the Raiders are probably going to take him because they have the quarterback, everything else. It's like, all right, well, even though we probably need defense as well, you know, Pete Carroll, probably would pick him because he'd be the equivalent of Marshawn Lynch back in the day. So, so that's what's expected here. Now, so I'm peeking in my phone here for a second. So the we have an oddity here this year with the NFL draft right now. Now, I don't think there was any trades that occurred over the last. Um, I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any trades that occurred yet. Um, no. Okay, so yeah, nothing is set in stone in terms of trades. So since there's no trades going, no first round picks, the draft order that you're seeing right now is how they finish in reverse order. Every team has their first round pick. And this is the first time it has occurred since 1967, which is the common draft era. Every team has their first round pick, and this year has seen a historic lack of trades in the lead up to the draft. Well, part of it is probably because um, Howie Roseman, it's like, yeah, I want your first round pick. Get away from me, click. So with 2 days from being about 46 hours away from the draft, this is the closest to the start of a draft without any trades involving first round picks in the common draft era, according to ESPN research. That is crazy that nobody has traded their first round pick. Now, this year is perceived as a weak quarterback draft class, so maybe that's the reason why. But now the Browns and the Giants both face uncertainty at quarterback. They're projected to use their first round picks to address other needs. Now, the Browns have Kenny Pickett, Super Bowl winning quarterback Kenny Pickett, sarcasm. They also signed Super Bowl winning quarterback Joe Flacco recently, even though that was eons ago. And you can tell the sarcasm in my voice when I say that. But they're probably going to address other needs. Now, according to Mel Kiper Jr., or as I like to call him, Eddie Munster, because his hair is a little bit. I mean, he's got thicker hair than I do, but he does have that Eddie Munster do. Um, he's predicting Travis Hunter will go 2, Abdul Carter will go 3, and the Raiders will pick Ashton Genty at 6 in his latest draft. ESPN's Jordan Reed made identical predictions for all three in his latest mock draft, so that's what's appearing to be what they're doing. Now, if you want Ashton Genty, maybe Dallas, and Jerry Jones was hinting. Um, Jerry Jones was hinting on working some substantive trades. Now, I don't know what that means since he's 80 some years old and he's probably cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and probably something, Parkinson's or whatever. But, I shouldn't say that, but, um, he's working, because Jerry, the GM, is working those deals right now. So Travis Hunter wants to play both sides of the ball. Um, and uh, Brown's general manager Andrew Berry is comparing him to Shohei Ohtani because Shohei Ohtani can both pitch and hit and play the field. Well, he hasn't played the field in a while, but Joe Shane of the Giants also praised the ability last week. He's not afraid. He won't be afraid to use him on both sides of the ball either. But like I said before, you get one major knee injury and you're out for a year, or an Achilles or whatever. I'm pretty sure he's going to change his mind about going both ways. But that's just me. And like when we talked about the tush push or the brotherly shove or the hiney over the liney, whatever you want to call it, we we said that even though they want to go after the tush push because we can't stop it, so what can we do? It's a dangerous play. It's not football related. Well, there haven't been any real injuries with this play. Chris Jones in the Super Bowl got hurt, but that was only because he was lined up like a fucking idiot and was facing the ball perpendicular to the Eagles' offensive lineman, thinking, "Oh, that'll get them from that'll stop them from scoring." Yeah, it really worked well, and you had a sore neck as a result. But I just but when it comes to the draft, I'll be watching, um, and I'll be waiting to see if the Eagles trade up, trade down, whatever. But um, maybe maybe we're going to see some all kinds of trades coming up. But it is weird that for the first time in the common draft era, all 32 teams, well, in this case, all 32 teams, because you've had expansion numerous times, but all the teams that were in the league have their first round pick. They never traded them, never traded back, never traded to get their pick back or anything like that, or took somebody else's pick to get back into the first round. We're probably going to see a bunch of trades, and maybe we don't, but you know, be interesting to see what happens on Thursday. And I don't know if I'm actually going to be on Thursday night. Maybe I will just have some fun with this and have a casual hang or whatever. But we'll figure it out. And if I don't find it, well, I'll let you guys know tomorrow. Now, I did see this today, and Mike Patrick, who spent 36 years as a play-by-play announcer for ESPN, so I'm sure that I don't think he was actually was at the draft, but he called games for ESPN for decades. Unfortunately, he passed away. Um, he passed away at the age of 80. He died Sunday of natural causes. Natural causes in Fairfax, Virginia. Patrick's doctor in the city of Clarksburg, West Virginia, where Patrick was originally from, confirmed the death today. Now, how does a city about 200 miles from where he passed away confirms it? I mean, or is it just that they're, or is it just that they're that it's such a slow town or whatever, and not many people have made it out of this city, and Mike Patrick made it out there. Yeah, we'll confirm it. So, um, his last game that he called. Well, he began his play-by-play role in ESPN in 1982. Um, he called his last event the AutoZone Liberty Bowl on December 30th, 2017. Um, Burke Magnus, who's the president for content of ESPN, said Mike Patrick called countless significant events over decades at ESPN. Yeah. Um, and one of the most influential on-air voices in our history. Yeah, I remember him for years. In addition, for calling ESPN's first ever regular season NFL game and voicing the Sunday Night Football franchise for 18 seasons. Wow. Mike's work on college sports was exceptional. Um, yeah, I mean that's amazing. I think Mike Tirico took over for him. I think because I think ESPN still had Sunday Night Football for a couple of years, or because I don't think NBC's had Sunday Night Football uh, since 2000, have they? Maybe they have. I don't know, but um, now not only did he call ESPN's first ever NFL regular season game and voice Sunday Night Football for 18 years, um, his work on college sports was exceptional as well. He called men's and women's basketball, including the women's Final Four, and so many historic matchups between Duke and North Carolina. Um, you know, all kinds of all kinds of things there. So as I'm changing channels here, there we go. So yeah, um, the first regular season game was in 1987, so he ran through the 2004 2005 season. So maybe that 2004 2005 season was when NBC got Sunday Night Football and they flip flopped to Sunday and Monday nights, I guess. Um, um, he was joined in the booth by former quarterback Joe Theismann and later Paul McGuire. Paul McGuire. Joe Theismann, more famously known for his Super Beta prostate commercials on TVG Network, which is now FanDuel TV. Man, we used to joke around with those Joe Theismann commercials. We used to call it the Super Beta Prostate Channel because it always seemed like there was a Super Beta Prostate commercial, then a horse race, and another commercial from Theismann. But and by the way, he's not related to Dan Patrick. Dan Patrick is a screen name because Dan Patrick has a different last name. It's on his Wikipedia. He has a different first. Patrick is actually his middle name, I believe. But but Mike Patrick. This may even be a screen name for what was a screen name for Mike Patrick as well. But Mike Patrick also called the College World Series as well. Um, Patrick said when he left ESPN in 2018, it's wonderful to reflect on how I've done exactly what I wanted to do with my life. At the same time, I've had the great pleasure of working with some of the very best people I've ever known, both on the air and behind the scenes. So, that was, I mean, that's a name that I remember. He started at WVSC in Somerset, Pennsylvania. He was a sports director in Jacksonville, Florida in 1970. He did play-by-play for the Jacksonville Sharks World Football League in 1973 and 74. Called Jacksonville University basketball games both on radio and television. Went to WJLA in D.C., sports reporter and weekend anchor. Called play-by-play for Maryland football and basketball. NFL preseason games for Washington. So, a full career. Um, you know, it looks like he retired on his own in 2018. It looks like, but he did have a full life. So, you know, condolences to the family and anyone who actually knew Mike Patrick. Yeah, I remember his voice. I know him as the first NFL Sunday Night Football guy and all that. So, hard to segue into something from that, um, but um, one guy that might have been called, might have been, might have played when Mike Patrick was in the booth was Jay Feely. Not AJ Feely, the Eagles' legendary quarterback. And, if you're a Philly sports fan, you know that that is sarcasm. Former NFL kicker Jay Feely, who was on CBS Sports calling games for years, he was usually the, the third man who would be on the sidelines. He's leaving the broadcast booth after a decade and is entering the political arena. So he is going to be running for the U.S. House of Representatives in Arizona's 5th Congressional District during the 2026 midterm election. Um, he formally filed a statement of interest with the Arizona Secretary of State earlier today, which is required before a candidate can begin collecting signatures and get on a ballot. He made a public announcement later Tuesday afternoon. He told ESPN today, "I'm excited about this new chapter in my life. I think I feel God's presence pressing me into service, and that's really what I believe it is the civil service. I don't believe we have enough politicians that get into political office, not for self-serving measures." Let me reread that. "I don't believe we have enough politicians that get into political office, not for self-serving measures, and that get into political office and don't want it to be a career. That's what I believe. I believe it is very much a civil service." Um, so he's going to go and I've heard him, and you know, I'm not going to turn this into a political thing. I think that he is well educated. So once I reveal his political party, this isn't about political party or anything like this. This is just the fact that an athlete is going to be running for office, and you hope he runs on his own, runs for his own, with his own beliefs. So, and not leaning towards extreme left, extreme right, whatever. So, Jay Feely met with congressional Republicans in Washington, D.C. about a month ago. So his wife, Rebecca, could get a better sense of what life with him as a politician would be like. When she was on board with Jay running, he committed to the decision. So it wasn't like it's, hey, I'm running. You got to deal with this. It wasn't any of that. It's like, hey, let's see what this is going to be like here. Just doing what we have to do here in the initial steps here. So he said he felt compelled to run for public office after the July assassination attempt on President Trump in Pennsylvania. Feely also said Trump and Representative Jim Jordan asked him to run for Congress in 2022, but Feely still had kids in high school. This time around, however, he and his wife will be empty nesters by the time the election cycle begins. So, yeah, I mean, I guess, you don't, him and his wife aren't split up all the time. I mean, even though technically they can be a lot, but, Um, so he's running for a seat vacated by Representative Andy Biggs, who recently announced his candidacy for Arizona governor in 2026. Feely said his platform will be centered around securing the southern border and the economy. It's exactly what we hear with everything that's Republican related right now, And the thing is, this isn't about politics, so please don't comment about that. But, you know, if he wants to run, so be it. You know, I mean, it isn't like the city of Philadelphia, which is 85 to 90% Democrat. So Democrat's going to win no matter what. But, but the thing is, it just takes one person to flip, for example, the mayor's office to get things back to normal. Where, and what I mean by back to normal isn't necessarily Republican. Because I'll tell you right now, I'm Democrat, but the reason why I'm Democrat more than anything else is the fact that I will get that primary ballot every spring, you know, because, if you're an independent, you can only vote on the, you can only vote on the polls, not the polls, the referendum questions, because you don't have an independent primary. You're not Democrat, you're not Republican, so you don't have any of that stuff. And the thing is with me, I like to joke around and you know, well, let me rephrase that, because some people that'll say this will say, "Dude, you're wasting a vote." Well, here's the thing: where there's a vote that requires me to choose one person over the other, I will choose one person over the other. However, when somebody is running unopposed, I will go Bart Simpson on somebody. You know, enormous stits. Uh, I'm trying to think of some of the names I've used in the past, but it's like if they actually read it, be like, "Oh shit, that's funny." Give them a laugh, because it's probably just like, uh, stuff like that. You know, but when it comes to an actual vote where your vote matters, because especially like, for example, national elections, many of these national type elections are razor thin votes, razor thin margins of victory or defeat, depending on what side of the matchup you're on. That's where you don't fuck around. But when you have an unopposed race here. That, in my opinion, is where you can fuck around and vote for Enormous Stitch, Jenna Tolles. God, there was a whole bunch of names I heard the other day that I should take a note of, but I was probably watching at 3 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't go to sleep, so I'm like watching. But um, so what gave Jay Feely the confidence to run for office here? Um, well, first of all, he will have name recognition, not only because he worked for CBS for 10 years after a 14-year NFL career. He kicked for the Arizona Cardinals for 4 years, so it's not like he's some guy where you're just saying out of the clear blue when you go to the polls. You're not sitting there thinking,
"Who the fuck is that guy?"
you're not thinking that. You're thinking, okay, well, let's do this. Um, so his NFL career prepared him to run a public office in three ways. One, he was an NFL Players Association player rep that spent time on the union's executive committee, on which he said he fought for players' rights to insurance. In a way, that's ironic, because guess what? What we have in office right now, and mind you, this is not a bash on Republicans. I'm just stating some things here. The Republican Party, for the most part, is trying to strip union rights and all that stuff, but we're not getting into those issues. We're not getting into this, that, and the other thing. Because I know, being in a union, I know in certain cases they will go for the Republican candidate, even though it becomes less and less rare with everything that's going on, because everybody keeps getting further and further extreme to their direction, as opposed to not coming together in the middle. because they're not coming together in the middle. That's where all this bullshit that we have in public right now. I mean, you know, like we have all these protests and walks and all this stuff. You know, probably about 20 years ago, you didn't really have much in the way of protest the way that we have over every little fucking thing. And if they want to walk in these protests, go right ahead. I don't care. I mean, I'm probably stuck working when you're doing the protest. So, even though I may agree with you, I may not agree with you, it's not, you know, some people like to do protests all the time. I prefer to be working and doing my shows and all that, but whatever. But so he was on the executive committee, the union's executive committee. So he has, you know, gets to learn the politics of the union business. So he got to deal with that. He also cited the pressure of being an NFL kicker is another trait that will help him in Congress. Um, and then he said, spending a decade broadcasting games has helped his ability to speak publicly and communicate. That makes sense. I mean, I'm sure he knew how to talk publicly, but nothing will give you more confidence than talking to millions upon millions of people. I mean, because I think he worked the sideline for the Super. No, or no, that was Steve Tasker. Well, he might have been on the radio side, calling the Super Bowl, especially the New Orleans one where the lights went out. Um, um, Feely also said, "I think that one of your biggest jobs as a congressman is to be able to communicate with your constituents." Agreed. Be able to talk about the issues of the day and why you believe the way you believe, and to be able to do it in a way that people can understand it. True. Now, how he ends up being perceived and how everybody jumps on his campaign and stuff like that, that's all waiting to be seen. And, will people actually listen to him? And obviously he's a kicker, so he probably had zero concussions. So he probably had zero concussions in his career and all that. So, but Jay Feely, um, he said throughout last football season, he felt an emptiness as he broadcasted games around the country and found himself realizing the challenge of preparing for calling them wasn't as alluring as it had been. It didn't have the same purpose that it had earlier in his TV career. He felt there was a calling to something greater, and that was a different platform that I wanted to try to utilize and have a positive impact on people. Okay. I've always been involved in politics and done a lot of different events for different politicians, um, local and national. And I've always liked thinking about political issues and talking about political issues. So that's not new. But leaving broadcasting after I'd worked so hard to get where I was, to step aside, to say I think there's a greater calling, yeah, that's different to me. Now, the one thing is, and it depends how I guess it depends how everything comes into play here with the campaign, the election, and all that stuff. What you're saying to the media. Like for example, Michelle Tafoya. I don't think she ran for office, but she turned into a right wing nut job. And before you comment, even though this isn't political, even though that was a political statement, even though it really wasn't, um, if you think about it, okay, I will actually defend those on the right because Yeah, there's left wing nut jobs too. Now, me personally, and this is the problem that I have with politics without it turning into a political thing. How I feel about things is even though I may not agree with your political leanings, I want to know what you're saying, whether you're right or you're wrong. Because the way that I am, and even when I turn it away from this particular statement, I go off on this tangent. Like at my job, the one thing that you will see in my reviews is even though this, and this is what he does in his calls and whatnot, he's always receptive to coaching. And I've always said this as well. I said this many years ago. And and this goes all the way back to when I was briefly a manager. Um, there was an employee, and we were both listening on the calls. And she's coaching me for when I would take over, and the group that was at my office was retiring. So she's hearing one thing, I'm hearing another thing. She's thinking, well, maybe it's this. And I said, she's not hearing that tone, because when a call would come in, you would hear a tone before you would hear the recording or hear the customer come on the line. So she wasn't hearing that. So it's like, oh, good catch. And the thing is, I will always tell you, and this is why sometimes I wish cross observations were done in my office, even though we don't do that anymore. At least I don't think we do, because I haven't had a cross op since I went back into my position from when I was on loan. The position, like I recently changed my reporting manager in March. They changed things around in the department. For example, she caught one thing that my previous manager did not catch. So it's like, well, I don't necessarily think that what you're saying that I need to say was actually that the last part was the requirement as well, but whatever. But um, but the thing is, what you may see in regards to anything, even if we turn it back to sports, what one person hears and sees may not be what I hear or see. But the one thing is, and it's just my observation of everything, the extreme left, and notice I'm going with the extreme left because I am registered Democrat. Those that are extreme left don't want to hear a damn thing what the extreme right are saying. And those that are extreme right, in my opinion, don't want to hear a damn word about the political left or the extreme left. So, me, even though I am a Democrat, and I'll let you know, in terms of the mayoral election, I haven't voted for a Democrat in the uh, mayoral main November election in at least 16 years, maybe 24. Not that I really want to, but um, I have a comment I have to make on Facebook. Um, but, um, but yeah, it's just right now, nobody wants to hear what the other person is hearing. And hopefully, even though those that are leaning left will say, well, hopefully Jay Feely doesn't go into that extreme right bullshit, MAGA, whatever. But if he can actually mention, if he's going to do what he says he does, and it just may be a bit of naivety, whatever, however you pronounce it. But, you know, if he's going to have that fresh mind into it, maybe he will be a good politician, even though you may be Democrat and be like, oh, dirty ass Republican or whatever you would say. Um, I just think a lot of what you see, um, what you see and hear, I would say, and the thing is, I'm sure a lot of people do listen. And trust me, I have a lot of people on my Facebook friends list who are Republicans, and some of them mock the shit out of Democrats. Whatever. It's your First Amendment right as long as it doesn't get your ass into trouble. But you're if you're joking around and as long as it's within reason. Like for example, if you watch last night's show, I did post that picture of JD Vance as a clue game. It was JD. What was it last night? Hold on, let me pull this back up because um, the Mets. Sorry about that. I had to respond to this, but um, so I posted something over the weekend. I said that Jordan Romano is doing quirky Romano things. Quirky because of the whole negative connotation of that, but also it's more of it's a joke, it's a spoof on the character Corky Romano from Saturday Night Live. So actually, one of my former managers, this Philly team looks bleep and pathetic. All these $1 million babies that cannot produce a hit is just unbelievable. What a pathetic series with the Mets. I agree, but I'll give some topic on. I'll give that some topic tomorrow. So tune in for that. Now, also, I do want to remind you that I do have my Saturday show also eligible, and it is Saturday morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. It is on the Bleacher Brothers pages. Um, and those that are on Twitch, you're going to see the links for that. And while I'm at it, I might as well put my socials in there as well. So this is why you want to go. This is why you want to join me on Twitch because I can do things like that, even though these icons are not there, these emojis. So it's Saturday morning, 10 a.m. It's on my uh, it's on my Facebook. It's on the Bleacher Brothers Facebook, on X, on the Bleacher Brothers main YouTube page, and Twitch.com/Bleacher Brothers. Do I do it? Yeah, well, that's right. I tried mixing it up and it didn't work last week because I was trying to put it on my Facebook. It didn't work. Actually, I don't even think I'm on their Facebook, but I might have to update that. And probably when I'm on vacation starting this week, I will. But what I do is every Saturday we look over the races, and right now I'm leaning towards Churchill Downs. It's their opening night. The Kentucky Derby is 10 days away, 12 days away. I will actually be down in Florida. They already got their cards drawn for Saturday and for Tuesday at Derby week. So, um, oh, and they changed the setup on the. Oh, okay. They changed things up here, but um, but we will be looking at the races. Um, Probably Churchill down since it's opening night. I mean, the stake schedule is horrible next weekend. Well, for me, for doing the show, but um, but it looks like we'll probably look at a few races from Churchill Downs, maybe the final four races on the card. I haven't decided yet, but we'll figure it out. So it's opening day at Churchill Downs. I'm leaning towards that right now. So just to give you a heads up on that. Um, so we'll see what comes up with that. One last story here before I send you on your way here. Anthony Edwards was fined for his actions in Game 1. He was fined $50,000 for directing inappropriate language and making an obscene gesture toward a fan during a playoff game against the Lakers. Now, according to Sham Charania, the NBA insider, um, he says, let me pull it up here. Um, Even though Sham Charania um, does censor the word, but since we're not governed by the FCC, I can put in that word. So there it is. The NBA is fining Minnesota's Anthony Edwards $50,000 for his "my dick's bigger than yours" comment to the Lakers crowd Saturday night. Oh my God. Oh, and the comment's amazing here as well. Anthony Edwards' dick is costing him more money again. Oh my God, the things. Well, actually, let me pull it back up again. Hold on. Uh, there it is. And this is what I was talking about. You know, every once in a while you get a joke comment like this. Somebody actually catches it and they'll share it on the Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Ricky Chu at Rick Daddy said, Anthony Edwards' dick costing him more money again. I gotta love people. You know, everybody's a comedian, even me. But, but sometimes if you get the right person joking, you're joking with the right person, or you're joking about the right topic, you will get a shit ton of hits. Um, where's it at here? It was from earlier today. Um, yeah, he got 5.6 million impressions on that tweet alone. Whether it's just me scrolling up and down here and showing you it or whatever, 5.6 million times his post was seen. Crazy. But then again, he has what? 2.9 million followers. So, yeah, he is going to get those gigantic impressions because of the fact that everybody is an NBA fan. Well, mostly everybody's an NBA fan. And they will and they will do what they can to get that stuff out there. Um, so that is going to be it for this show. Just a reminder, we will be live tomorrow. Um, and like I said earlier, I'm debating about Thursday. Um, I could do a fun stream. I could do whatever. I don't know. Um, I know the Bleacher Brothers show. There is no show on Thursday. Maybe more personal reasons than it is actually um, anything else. But um, all right. So I apologize for yawning there, but I'm the caffeine has worn off. So that is it for now. And just remember, also eligible on Saturday, 10 a.m. on the Bleacher Brothers channels, as I mentioned before. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. This one. Just change that to a colon and a slash, and you'll get everything there. So that'll be on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. But we still have a show tomorrow night, probably a show on Thursday, and we'll get to the weekend. I'll get to my vacation, and we'll get to Saturday's also eligible, and I'll start prepping for my trip to Florida and getting ready for the Derby. I will be at Gulfstream Park that day, I believe. So that's it for now. I do appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll do it live uh, tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. Thanks to everybody watching on Twitch, on X. We had we'll just call him Temp. I don't know, Templed. I don't know. We were talking about the the Northeast Philly landmark, the Eagles bus being taken down from that building in Northeast Philly, but whatever. So that's it for now. I do appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll do it live tomorrow night, and we'll definitely talk about the Phillies losing again tonight because I'm always looking for new eyes to the show, and um, you know, my former manager, he major Phillies fan, just as big as me, even though he's smaller by height. But we'll go from there. So do appreciate each and every one of you. Let's do it again tomorrow night, 9 o'clock Eastern, and I'll see you guys in the winter circle. Have a great night, everybody.